Hello and welcome to the most peaceful place where the fruiting plants and animals roam free. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of them as they make this piece of haven very enjoyable for all. Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming to Peaceful Village.
So welcome to Creating a Beautiful World radio show with Michael Lanfield. And this episode 4 is why positivity and hope are crucial to achieving world peace. And of course we know that nonviolence is also crucial to achieving world peace. And what is world peace? We're going to be talking to a special guest today, Judy Carman. And she is like one of my favorite authors, and I really enjoyed especially her book, Peace to All Beings. And as soon as I read her newest book, Homo Ahimsa, I understood what her message was, and I'm going to let her explain that to you. So Judy Carman is an animal liberation activist since the 1970s and has helped establish various activist organizations for animals and children. She became vegetarian in the 1970s and vegan after learning about cruelty involved in dairy and eggs. She is the author of several books, including Peace to All Beings and Homo Ahimsa, Who We Really Are and How We're Going to Save the World. She has created prayer flags for animals where people display flags from all over the world, and is currently involved in projects such as Interfaith Vegan Coalition and Vegan Spirituality through In Defense of Animals, or IDA, Circles of Compassion, Prayer Circles for Animals with Will and Madeline Tuttle. And you can visit her websites at peacetoallbeings.com and circlesofcompassion.org. And because this is going to be uploaded to YouTube, you'll be able to click on all the links down below in the description. So all the information will be provided. And so before we actually start, we're going to just have a few updates and things, what's going on with this radio program, as well as my work. So we have exciting guests going to be partaking in this show next 2 weeks. Let me see. I think it's hold on. I think it's September 9, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check here. September 9, we're going to have Mango Wadzak, who is an author of several books on Eden Fruitarianism, and you can visit his website at fruitnut.net. And he is going to be on the 9th of September, so you can check that out. Go to weareinterconnected.com and click on the radio show link there. All the information is posted there. So yes, that is happening on the 9th, and we have other exciting guests as well. Let me just introduce you to some of the guests that will be on the show, because I think you're going to love it. And the show airs every 2 weeks, and it's based on trying to transition away and how we can basically cope in this society that we're living in currently, and how we can actually walk away from it and create a new world based on caring and love and sharing. So that is what our aim is here in this show. So the event is sponsored by Evolution Diet Pet Food. So if you have a companion animal, cat, dog, or any animal, you can transition them and feed them vegan pet food through Evolution Diet Pet Food. So this is sponsored by my good friends Lynn and Eric Wiseman, and you can check them out at petfoodshop.com. That's petfoodshop.com. Yeah, so the following week will be September 9 will be 4 p.m. Central Time in Costa Rica, which is 6 p.m. New York, Toronto time. We'll have The Power of Fruit and Nonviolence interview with Mango Wodzak, and that will be exciting. Then we have, again, we have another 2 guests on September 25th, which is Rob Renmark and Brenda Vance, and they'll be talking about the benefits of eating fruitarian and raw vegan. And then on October 9th, we will have The Power of Vegan Food Recipes. So that'll be a little kind of different with Lena Novak from Lena's Vegan Living. So that is the schedule as of now. And you can visit weareinterconnected.com and click on the radio show link there. And what else is up? Well, I posted recently. I posted my books as ebooks. So there's new formats coming out on Barnes and Noble and different platforms. There's going to be ebooks on there. My newest one, and soon coming out on Audible and about 30 other different platforms. My newest book, The Journey to Awakening, will be available, and that is graciously provided the music by Moby, so it's great. Short audiobook on why we have to transition away from our society, as well as exercising our birthrights as human beings. So without further ado, we're going to get started with this interview. Hopefully people are going to be on shortly. So let's start. So it's so nice to have you on here, Judy Carman. Thank you so much for being on and creating a beautiful world.
Well, thanks, Michael, for having me. I'm really honored to be in the presence of such a great author, and it's so wonderful to be together because we're so much on the same page in many, many ways. Just our vision for a vegan world and a peaceful world of nonviolence and ahimsa. So I feel like I'm definitely in the right place right now talking to you. So it's just great to be here. So thanks for having me.
Excellent. It's so great to have you here and to have everybody else going to be coming on the line, as well as listening or watching this at any time through YouTube. So it will all, I forgot actually, 1 second here. Oh, good. Okay. I almost thought I forgot to start recording, but it's recording, so I'm happy.
Yeah, I heard her say it was recording, so
yes,
we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
We're good.
Yeah, I love that little lady.
Yeah. She's very assuring.
Right. So, can you talk a little bit about both your books and the differences between them? Peace to All Beings and Homo Ahimsa?
Sure, yeah, I'm glad to do that. Peace to All Beings I wrote a while back. It's been a while, but it still seems to have a life of its own. People have told me mostly that it's just very reassuring to them and makes them feel like, in fact, I just got an email today from someone who said she reads it periodically to realize that she's not alone in this quest that we have to create a world of peace, not just for people, but for all beings. So, but that book, basically, I wrote it to reassure vegans and help us see that, no, we're not alone. There's a lot of us out there on the same page. But I also wrote it so people could give it to pre-vegans so they could see things such as, like I'll have a story. I've got lots of little stories in there, true stories about, for example, a pig that saved a little boy and a monkey who jumps in the river and saves a child and takes the child back to the mother. Just stories like that you know, you really, after you read that, you can't say that animals don't have feelings, personalities, intelligence, and that they're trying to tell us something. They're trying to show us how to live. And so there's that in there, in the book. And it's also showing the connection between spirituality and veganism, which I think for a long time was kind of missing. And I think largely because churches and other places of faith kind of ignored animals, either ignored them or mostly participated in their abuse with potlucks that included animal products, of course, but also taking kids to zoos and circuses and rodeos as a church activity, and fishing and all of that. And so a lot of people, including myself, I spent some time as an atheist because I just felt like there was no help for nature and animals in the spiritual world. But that changed over time, and I started really studying and actually, I must say, needing a spiritual life. And it came to me really that veganism is a spiritual act, because you are acting from your heart and your soul when you decide to no longer participate in cruelty to animals and the exploitation of them. And so it becomes part and parcel of your life, spirituality and the vegan ethic. But it still offends a lot of people for me to say that. And so I just say, you know, I'm not saying that it's a religious act necessarily, because a lot of religions do lots of actions that are very un-vegan. I'm saying it's a spiritual act. And even if you identify as an atheist, which many do, or an agnostic, you're a vegan for some reason that is way beyond just logic. You're not just saying, okay, this isn't logical to kill animals. You're saying this isn't right. And otherwise you would not be dedicating your life to this way of living. And so it is coming from the deepest part of you to be an ethical vegan. And so, should I explain more about what veganism is, or we have a...
Actually, I just want to stop you here for a moment and just say that I love the way Will Tuttle talks about deep veganism and the vegan stages, because when we start as a vegan, we really are just kind of on our beginning path, and we can say we're maybe shallow vegan, or maybe we're in our beginning stages. But basically, we're in our beginning stages of being vegan and understanding, like, what do I do, what do I eat, all these feelings. If we went vegan for health or for environmental reasons first, and then ethics, or ethics first, whatever it is, eventually we start to, understanding the ethics, and that's really what it boils down to, because Donald Watson, in November of 1944, he said that it was because of kindness and compassion for the animals. He knew that there was cruelty involved in eating animal products, especially at the time, dairy products, because dairy products was huge at the time, especially now, of course, too. But, go ahead and continue the discussion.
Yeah, so for anyone that's listening in, vegan, what we're basically saying is a plant-based diet is one thing, and a lot of people think that veganism is just that, just the plant-based diet. But it's much more than that. It's a dedication to nonviolence, basically. and a dedication to including all beings in our circle of compassion. But you're right, a lot of people, and maybe many listeners, may be looking at it from a health point of view, because it is a healthier diet for sure. And there's way less chance of getting heart disease or cancer or many other of the common diseases in the United States, especially, if you eat a whole food plant-based diet. And in your case, a raw fruitarian diet, which is really, really wonderful.
Yeah, some people say it's too extreme, but yeah, okay, go on.
It's a beautiful way to eat, but it's not practical in some cases for a lot of people, especially if you live in the north and it's hard to get a lot of fruit and so forth. But at any rate, many people who start out eating plant-based for health find, in fact, well, I'll just give you an example of one person that I met and it was a gentleman, and I was at Veg Summerfest, and I sat down at the table with him and his family, and they had become plant-based because they all had a disease, a gastrointestinal disease. And they were told that if they ate plant-based, they would get well. Well, they did. They all got well from this. And so they're going along. They're not even realizing that they're eating vegan, that's actually protecting animals. They're not even thinking about that at first. But he said that at some point he started realizing that he would watch a movie that it didn't used to bother him at all, a sad movie, but all of a sudden he's crying. His empathy had started just expanding, and then they started learning about what was going on to animals, because their empathy had expanded enough. Well, but the others were agreeing with him. And then it was like more, because they were eating plant-based, they weren't eating animals, it became easier for them to watch the videos and see what was really happening to the animals, and kind of like, okay, the famous saying, now I can look at you in peace because I don't eat you. And so they went from the health standpoint to becoming ethical vegans. And and that indicates to me that there's definitely something in the animal products that is embedded in that the people who are eating it embedded into themselves, and that is the violence of them being raised the way they are and being killed the way they are, well, being killed, period, and the fear, the trauma, the horror, and the innocence of these animals being obliterated, totally defenseless animals. And so when you take that, all those hormones and energy, the energy field of absolute terror out of your diet, then you have the ability to shift your consciousness in really astounding ways. And so
unless maybe you're still on that beginning stage and you still don't really understand, because some people get to that stage and get even beyond that to a stage called a stage where we're actually angry, and it's like angry vegans, and we're always angry. And I've known people for 20 or 30 years, and they still have this angry mentality, like it's me versus them, another person, and we see them as separate.
Yeah, that's really true, Michael. And so the empathy kind of stops with the animals and other vegans. But that's another reason I wrote that book, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's because as we learn, as we gradually learn, because it takes time, as Will talks about, we have so many programs to get rid of that we're not even aware that we have. And so it takes time. We have to be very patient with ourselves. But the anger that a lot of vegans have and activists have is hurting them. I mean, that's what anger does. It's actually depression being expressed outward towards someone else. And so it's a way to cope with the terrible things that we have seen, but it is not an effective way. And so part of my book is also about coming to terms with that, the fact that almost all of us started out eating animals, unless we were raised vegan by vegan parents. We started out that way. We started out being taught that eating meat was important for our health and it was okay. The animals it didn't really hurt them, and all these lies. And so we were all there at one point. I mean, it took me a long time to understand what was really happening to the animals. And so I wanted to say in that book, Peace to All Beings, that these people, even the people, for example, who work in the slaughterhouse, excuse me, they are suffering in terrible ways. And that's another part of the damaged energy field that we're incorporating if we eat meat, is the horror that they are living in by having to make a living killing animals. So their rate of suicide is very high, and spousal abuse and drug addiction and all those things, because of their suffering. It's not normal for a human being to inflict that kind of pain on an animal.
Right.
So,
There's actually a book called Slaughterhouses by Gail Eisenman, which really goes into this, and especially in the U.S., because the U.S. is the worst, but I mean everywhere. I mean, no matter where, how, or where you kill the animals, I mean, eventually all animals go to their deaths early on, before their natural lifespan, and even before then, we steal from them, we take their products, we remove their babies from them, and the whole point is that we live in a herding culture that you basically see other beings as property, as things to be used. And so how does your new book, Homo Ahimsa, how do you go by, like what is your main message in that book?
Okay, so I wrote Homo Ahimsa. I actually came up with the concept of Homo Ahimsa and Peace to All Beings because my idea was that Homo sapiens has made a gigantic mess of the world, right? Alligators didn't do it. Cows didn't do it. Snakes didn't do it. Only Homo sapiens, which is supposedly means wise human, right? Not too wise. And the more technology we gained, the more damage was done. And Silas Rao talks about how we have been like caterpillars who forgot we were supposed to be butterflies, and so we just keep chomping. And interesting to me that a lot of the big bulldozers are made by a company called Caterpillar. But he is right. We need to go into our chrysalises and decompose, basically, turn into goo, and come out as butterflies, a new creature. And I had already been thinking along those lines of Homo Ahimsa. And so, but things got so bad, have gotten so bad, I felt like I've got to get this more clear so that we can get that message out to people. We don't have very much time at all. But, as you say, there's hope. And I think a lot of people are losing their hope. So what you're doing is really, really important, because we can't keep being activists if we don't have any hope. And the news that's coming out now, and this whole pandemic thing, is scaring people. And you can't think, you can't create when you're living in fear. Right. And so we are getting so close to the precipice with all of the ocean dead zones, the pollution in the oceans. Now we're adding tons of masks to the ocean, disposed masks, and who knows what all. And so it's even worse. And of course the fish dying, and of course the what Silas Rao, who wrote Carbon Dharma and Carbon Yoga. Those are both really important books to read. He is predicting that if we don't change our ways in the next 6 years, which is gradually getting to 5 years, that all the wild vertebrates will be extinct by 2026. So his website is Vegan World 2026, I think. Anyway, I mean, you can find it that way.
Climate Healers.
Yeah, climatehealers.org. And they're doing a lot of really great things there. They've got a lot of people working on different projects, like feeding the hungry vegan food, of course, and figuring out how we're going to do money, how we're going to change the economy so that it really works, and spiritual aspects of all this, reaching out to churches, trying to get them to see that they have got to get on board here, or we're going to lose our Homo sapiens-ness.
Right.
We're going to be gone.
Right. And just one side note, for people that want to join, we have a forum online through Peaceful Village. It's forum.peaceful-village.com, where people can join and start to discuss and learn about how can we create alternative communities. And that will all be in the description below the YouTube video, so don't worry about that. forum.peaceful-village.com, and there you can discuss on how we can create a new world. Because now, I mean, the world as we know it is governed by people and authorities, so-called authorities, elite people, police, governments, etc., mega corporations, mainstream media, etc. And we've been doing this for literally, and even science has been around for literally 300-400 years, maybe a little longer, with governments and so forth. And it's no longer working. I mean, we've been reforming this society for so long, and now it's time to get out as a caterpillar and transform into a butterfly. So let's do that. Let's create this new world. And we can do that through platforms like this and books like Judy's and mine and so forth. And I just want to also mention that Judy was also the forward writer to my newest book, Creating a Beautiful World. So thank you for that. And and also we were talking before about I just want to clear this up a little bit about the plant-based versus veganism, because I think people are being very delusional or mistaking plant-based for vegan, and they're going to restaurants that serve plant-based burgers and food, and even long-term vegans, for example. And I can't believe it, because a lot of these foods are not even, first of all, not even vegan. They're grilled on usually the same grill or in the same oil as animal products. People, for some reason, want to get on the bandwagon. Why do you think it's happening that plant-based is the term plant-based is starting to have momentum? And where do you think it came from? Like, who started it?
Well, that's a good question, Michael. I don't really know that. I think I've been using it to discriminate between the actual diet itself, food, that people are eating, versus the ethics of veganism and how far-reaching that is. And really, it's synonymous. Veganism is synonymous with ahimsa. And and I did want to spend a little time talking about what ahimsa means.
Sure.
I was talking to Silas the other day, and he said that this is a Sanskrit word, and that means non-harm, and that's what I've been saying. It means non-harm. Well, Silas said it's a little more than that. He said that A in the word means, in Sanskrit, exact opposite. And himsa, the next part of the word, means extreme deliberate cruelty. So he was saying it doesn't just mean harm. It means extreme deliberate cruelty. So ahimsa is the exact opposite of extreme deliberate cruelty. So it is, in essence, extreme kindness and compassion and nonviolence, extreme. And so veganism is the same thing.
Sorry, do we have justification for some sort of harm or some sort of use? Because you said extreme use or extreme harm.
What are you asking?
Sorry, just rephrase the question. You said it was extreme harm or extreme abuse. So some people would say, well, I'm not really abusing this animal. It's humane, or I'm doing it with least amount of pain or least amount of suffering. So
yeah, that's a very good point. He was just explaining what ahimsa actually means in Sanskrit.
Okay.
And so, but you're very, very right to point that out, because we do not want to say that if it's not extreme cruelty, it's okay, So that's really a good point. But basically, ahimsa, there are books written about it, and it is a Jain term. The Jains may be one of the oldest religions in the world. They may have predated writing. We don't really know, because it predated, if it predated writing. And so, but if that's the case, that would help explain why the Jains are so close to understanding this, and have been for all these centuries. They've had animal hospitals for centuries. And many of the Jain monks wear masks so that they won't accidentally inhale an insect. And they'll have a little broom that they'll whisk off a seat before they sit down to make sure they don't sit on anybody. So some of the Jains still use dairy as a religious thing, but there are many vegan Jains now coming out. But in any case, another aspect of ahimsa is that Gandhi took the vow of ahimsa and carried it into the political world, where he tried to explain that we don't have to have wars. We can change society by ascribing to absolute non-harm, absolute non-violence. And so we learned a lot from him about nonviolent communication, nonviolent non-cooperation with authorities and that sort of thing. But at any rate, so my idea about Homo Ahimsa is that Homo sapiens cannot solve the problems that Homo sapiens caused. Because if you just look at what Homo sapiens is doing through our technology and our huge, giant businesses and all the money involved in that, and the governments, of course, it's just getting worse and worse and worse, which is very frightening to everyone. And I wanted to say in that book, okay, it's scary, but we have hope, because if we do it right, we can not really transform, because we already are Homo Ahimsa. That's why I wrote in the subtitle, who we really are. But because of the patriarchal, anthropocentric mindset that we've been in for the last at least 10,000 years since animal agriculture started, and that's a whole other huge topic, but prior to animal agriculture, there is evidence of much more peaceful getting along with each other. There's evidence there was no war. There's evidence there were no pandemics before animal agriculture started. But in any case, here we are, and we have to move completely away from the patriarchal dominator mindset that we've all been raised in. We've learned it in school, our place of worship, our parents who didn't know any different, and grandparents as well, and all, well, basically everybody, because we've all been programmed into this culture. So it's a big job, but we can do it because, and the reason I think we can do it is because there is an innate love within us, within our hearts, within every human being. Unless you're an extreme psychopath, there is that innate love within our hearts. And if we tap into that, we can lose our fear, go past our fear, and actually, like what you're saying, Michael, is find ways to live where we don't need the big government, big ag, big pharma, and all of those things. They will fall away because we're not using them, we're not needing them. And I know that sounds like a wild idea, but that's where we have to go, and we're capable of going there if we want to badly enough, and if we want to survive as a species. And so I'm saying, let's leave our Homo sapiens-ness behind, open up to who we really are, a loving being that is here to bring love to the world. Open up to that. Let all those programs go. And it's going to take, meditation. It's going to take being together like on Michael's show and listening to these ideas and hearing this beautiful message that you have that we can do this.
Exactly.
There is hope. And then, so another part of my book is imagining what this vegan world would look like. And so I have a whole bunch of different, just things listed of what it would look like. Of course, there would be no fences, there would be no animals in chains and little, tiny cubicles where they're being tortured. None of that would exist. All the animals would be free, and people would be free. We would be free then to be creative, to create this new world, and to be fearless in that, and to believe in ourselves and know there's good in there. So, I really believe we can do it. And, of course, I left room in the book for people to add their own ideas of things you can do. And then you're having this Peaceful Village Forum, and Silas is having his group meetings. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah. And
yeah.
that's the main thing that I really love about your book, because there's so many books on why we should be going vegan, and the three main things, of course, the health, environment, and the ethics for the animals. And what I really love about your book is the hope and the positivity it gives. You know, like, we can really do this. We are innately and spiritually, we are Homo Ahimsa. We are this, incredible, wise being that can get out of the mess that we're in today. And that's really what I like about it, because it really, so talk a little bit more about that, how it really brings positive hope to the world, and especially to vegans. Because we feel like, oh, as vegans, there's so much killing going on, and we feel depressed, and there's so much violence, and people just won't listen to us. And your book really says, no, people are changing, things are progressing, and we can get out of this mess. And humans are not innately violent, because we're all born babies, innocent, and we've just been programmed to think differently than what we really truly are. So what we need to do is reawaken. So talk a little bit about that.
Right. Yeah, you're so right. Absolutely. And find it inside of ourselves, this, not just the hope, but the belief in our humanity, that we really are beings of love. And the one thing I talk about is the golden rule, that almost every religion has some version of the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And of course, they've almost all, except for the Jains and a few others, limited it to humans. Okay, just be nice to the people. Don't worry about the animals.
Well, that's what humans think, but really it means all beings.
Right. Well, right. It is the highest ideal. And so one of my points in the book is, how would we have come up with that? As really nearly all the religions in the world coming up with the same idea. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that mysterious? That we would, from all places around the world, come up with that idea and realize that is our highest calling. It really is. And of course it encompasses all beings, not just people, and it encompasses nature, all life. And so it's embedded within it the idea of ahimsa and love for and reverence for all life. So that's really exciting to me. It's almost like, okay, there's a key. We've all been saying it all our lives, the golden rule. Let's just open that door and say, hey, we can really do that. It's not just a saying, and, well, yeah, I guess, there is a lot of violence in the world and terrible things happening. No, let's open that up and say, hey, this really is who we are. Well, we never would have thought it up. And so we're not, as we know, we're not predators. We're not built like predators. We don't have canine teeth. We don't have claws, etc. So we are exactly, yeah. So we are these gentle beings, and here we are, and we're ready to create a gentle world. And finally, after all these, I don't know if it was trial and error, and we just kept taking the wrong route or what happened, but the animal agriculture was the big
catalyst.
I don't know if you can't call it a mistake, but it was a turn down a really dark road, because it led to war. It led to violence, extreme, unbelievable violence between people and also towards animals. It led to all kinds of diseases and pandemics and all these things, but here we are, well, you're way younger than I am, Michael, but the people who are alive today, I'll say, we just were born into this. And like, this is normal. No, this is not normal. This is not right. And
yeah,
I think
we're beings of habit, so we kind of like each day of whatever we're doing, it just gets more programmed into our mind. Like, this is normal, this is natural, whatever we're doing in the world. Living in these houses and living in artificial buildings and artificial lights and all these things, it's just normal. Watching these computers is normal. All these things is normal, but we've lost our true sense of living and true nature, because we're meant to be putting our hands in the soil and walking barefoot everywhere. And here we are now, totally unnatural living, trying to explain to people how it is to live.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, we, most of us went to public school, and they feed us all the really bad food with lots of animal products in it. And gross cheese and, hamburger and all of those things. And of course we think, well, that's what people eat. Everybody's eating it. And that's just a microcosm of everything else we've been taught. And, well, people will always be at war. And we need more and more weapons. And we need bigger and bigger buildings and more highways and all these things. And one of the biggest fallacies and one of the things that we have to figure out as we make this transition is how do we stop believing in progress? Because, and I'm talking about economic progress, right now and over the last 200 years maybe, economic progress was the mark of success. We have to keep the stock market growing. We have to sell more and more products. We have to grow more and more animals, kill more and more animals, and have more and more clothes, more and more stuff, more and more of everything. And that's success. That's what we grew up being taught. And of course, my parents grew up in before World War II, and I was born in '44, and so we were just getting out of the war, and it was like, okay, now we can really be successful and grow our businesses. And then, of course, all the things that came out of the war machine, including DDT and all these horrible chemicals, was like wonderful. This is great. Yeah, well, now we can kill all the insects. That's a great idea. And so it just went really bad from that point on. And I do recommend that everybody read Homo Deus. It kind of inspired me to write Homo Ahimsa, kind of, because he has a very dark prediction of what could happen. And the author's name is Yuval Noah Harari.
Okay, we will link it in the description.
Yeah, if you want to go down that dark road. But it's interesting because he is telling us where we're headed if we don't become Homo Ahimsa.
Right.
Homo Deus is the elite, wealthy, wanting to become gods, basically. Mm-hmm. And he explains this whole idea of progress better than I can. And he says, it kind of really surprised me. He said, go back a few hundred years, there was no such thing. You were a shoemaker. You couldn't make more shoes and build your business. you just made shoes for your little community.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, people weren't borrowing money, saving money, and that sort of thing. And so he does a really good job of explaining that. But that is going to be a huge thing that we're going to have to transition out of as we create this new world, is this idea that everything has to keep growing. We need more of everything. And I know that you teach that too, Michael. So, but...
yeah, not growing, but growing spiritually.
Well, right. That's the whole key. Yeah. Growing spiritually is the key to ending growing financially.
Right.
And, yeah, the whole idea that we can't just rest. If we have a business, we have to make it bigger and bigger and bigger, get more and more employees, and have more money coming in every year and all that, because otherwise we lose our investors and blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on. And that is the rat race that we have been in and taught. That's how it is. So we go to college thinking, oh my gosh, I got to get a job that's actually going to be there. I mean, I got to take classes for a job that's actually going to be there when I get out, and all of that. So I don't have all the answers. I don't have the whole big picture, but with all of us working together and having these forums and gatherings where we talk, what does this new vegan world look like? First of all, it's vegan, and the reason that's critical is because that eliminates animal agriculture right off the bat. That eliminates tremendous amounts of pollution and could actually save the world. Just eliminating animal agriculture. And that's so simple. Just stop buying their products.
Right.
And so that part's real easy to figure out.
Right.
And it's our big message that we're trying to get out to everyone. Even if you don't care, if you're listening in and you don't particularly care about animals, that's okay. But if you care about our species surviving, we can't keep going on like this. We can't keep ravaging the earth and burning up the trees. And animal agriculture is a huge part, a huge driver of burning the Amazon forest and polluting the waterways and the air and the oceans. So, and I'm including fish in that, fish that are raised in these little pools, as well as the fish that are free in the oceans.
Right.
Until they're caught. And so if you care about our species surviving and doing good on this planet and healing the damage we've done, we have to stop animal agriculture. That sounds like David and Goliath. It's not. It's just don't buy their products. It's that simple. And we had I'll tell a little story about Tyson. They tried to come into a little town near me called Tonganoxie, Kansas. Mm-hmm. And they bought their way in, and the county commission announced one day, oh, guess what? Tyson is coming in. They're going to build over there. It's going to be a mega chicken area with slaughterhouse right there, and trucks coming in and out. And oh, isn't this great? We'll have all these jobs. Well, the whole town of Tonganoxie went wild. And, of course, we live close. We went to the rally, and we convinced the state's representatives who came that this is, first of all, this was done underhandedly without the citizens being involved. And we want them shut out. They can't come into Tonganoxie. They agreed with us, And that was the end of that. But the interesting thing was, most of the people in Tonganoxie eat chickens. And so those of us who were vegan were there and helping them, but also saying, if you weren't eating chickens, it would put a big dent in Tyson. So it ultimately, and I'll just point this out as a postscript kind of, Tyson actually went to the Kansas legislature, again very quietly, and they got the Kansas legislature to pass a law that stated that Tyson could go wherever they wanted in Kansas, and the only restriction was 100 feet from the nearest home, or building or whatever. And so that is the kind of bully that they are, and that is what we're looking at. But again, simple. Just don't eat chickens. Don't eat their products, and we can shut them down. And with your getting this message out, Michael, and all the other people that are, I'm pleading with everyone who listens in. This is the most important, biggest, most powerful thing we can do right now.
Exactly.
These other things of creating a vegan world, what's it going to look like, all of that, we're working on it. But
Exactly.
That's first step, and it's doable. And just imagine the beauty that would come back in the world when animal agriculture is gone. Just imagine. And pharmaceutical companies would also start to crumble, because a big part of their business is antibiotics and other medicines for these poor animals who live in these horrible conditions. So it will start crumbling the big pharma also, which is doing a lot of very nefarious things, as we know. So, yeah.
It's exciting to see the progress what's happening today, especially as more and more people go vegan, and more vegan restaurants, and more vegan products, and more. I mean, just with this pandemic, from what we've, the coronavirus, COVID-19, just from this alone, we've seen very positive things happen, like smog from cities going away, and wild animals coming into the cities, and all that kind of thing. But at the same time, we also see more masks. We also see more servitude towards governments wearing these masks and thinking that, they're law, so we need to do it. And maybe people feel scared, and people feel, they don't want to go against the law, because then they, end up, whatever, they would end up in jail, or whatever fear they have, within their minds. And so I think your book and many other books, and I just wanted to also add in about the Amazonian rainforest. There's a new documentary coming out from the same gentleman who created a film, Food Choices, and diet fiction called Takeout Documentary. So you can visit it at takeoutdocumentary.com. Michael Swarovski, I believe, and he's discussing how plant-based and vegan diets actually can reverse the impact that we're having, especially on the Amazonian rainforest. And he goes into that. I haven't seen it yet, but it just came out recently. So I have you were discussing about how this world will look like, because maybe people would want a vision. How can we, will we really get to a place that kind of looks like a Garden of Eden, a utopian world? Will we ever get there? People always think in a negative, fearful way, like, humanity, we're always violent, and we're always going to be violent, and that's our nature, and we're never going to get to that world. And no, but I predicted in my book, The Lost Love, I predicted that, and of course we don't have all the answers too, because we're just trying to understand ourselves and the bigger picture here. But I also wrote in two chapters in my book, The Lost Love, what I feel that world would look like in the future as a vegan world. So what can we do, Judy, what can we really do to create this world that you're envisioning in your book, besides just going vegan?
Yeah, that's a big part of it, as we were just saying, and a simple thing to do too. I mean, I know it takes learning, and there's a learning curve for sure. But as far as making the decision, it's clear, beautiful, loving, wonderful decision to make, and you will feel so clean and so much more compassion in your heart. So that has so many ramifications for for everyone who goes vegan, not just for the earth and all the pollution and everything and the animals, but also for your own heart. So so that's one thing. But visualizing is a super important aspect of this, because we are kind of distant from the world that we're creating. Gandhi said that prayer and vision is the most powerful force in the world when it's coupled with love. So that's a really big part of this, this change that we're making to the world. As major as it sounds, if we can, and that's one reason I listed what it's going to look like, and you did too, Michael, so that we can think about that and picture it in our minds and feel what it would feel like and feel the joy of what it would be like to live in a world where our children, we don't have to track our children for fear that they're going to be kidnapped if they walk to school or something. And I mean, the world has gotten so embedded in fear. So what we need to do is envision a world that is not embedded in fear, that is well, obviously vegan, but a world at peace where there is no war and where there is no violent talk, no violent thoughts, which takes work on ourselves, and no violence towards others. And this is the general picture of it. We're capable of doing that. And then I think, like in my list, for example, I talk about how beautiful it will be as the trees regrow, because they aren't going to be trampled anymore by these millions of animals, and the streams will clear up, and the rivers, because there's no more animal waste being poured into them, and not to mention also coal ash and all the things from mining not going in. And products are being used in the animal industry and the pharmaceutical industry. So, so it all works together as we eliminate these things. But just to sit and contemplate what that would look like, a world where the streams and rivers are clear, and just feel the joy of that, and feel the peace of that. And then another exercise in visualization might be to think about the children at the border of Mexico, and that just being completely taken apart, and all those children reuniting with their families and finding beautiful homes where they can live in peace and not have to go through what they've been going through. And imagine, things like child trafficking or sex trafficking, how that would all stop, and just imagine all those children being found and freed and and home and loved, and then imagine, also gardens, beautiful gardens and fruit trees, just, overflowing with wonderful food, and imagine everybody in the world having enough to eat. Right now, I think it's almost 1 billion people that go hungry, and many die from hunger, which is that's not right. We can't have that, and of course, we all know that it happens because of this relentless chasing progress and profits, so that their land is taken over, so they can't grow their food, and then they can't get food because of political unrest and all these things. So, just I guess one way would be to pick a problem like that and then imagine it gone, and just enjoy that beautiful vision. And so that's this, I think, a spiritual practice that we can use that is extremely powerful. Will and Mellon and I, the Tuttles and I, have a prayer that we repeat every day at noon, and everybody that has joined us repeats it every day at noon.
It is
compassion.
It is noon, so we can kind of say it, right?
Okay. Compassion encircles the earth for all beings everywhere. And so the more people that say that, that puts out an energy field that is way more powerful than fear, greed, violence, hatred, all those things. That's more powerful. And we just have to believe that and understand that and empower that. When we say it, know it's true. And that more and more people are joining us. So it's something that each one of us can take part in. This visualization, the prayer, meditating on this, spending time within, noticing when we have a thought, a violent thought, and letting that go. Going, that's weird. Where did that come from? I don't need that violent thought.
Actually, I just want to chime in for a second. I've learned from a podcast I was listening to recently that anytime we start getting negative or fearful thoughts in our minds, we say this one little phrase, which is a beautiful thing, because we understand that it's just our thoughts, and it's thank you for sharing. And when we say thank you for sharing, basically it gives a peace, a love, understanding that it's just our thoughts, and understanding also that, and as human beings, when we first came into the world, I shouldn't say when we first came into the world, but maybe when animal agriculture started, we kind of had this where our thoughts were trying to protect us from whatever it was in the world. So we basically react to whatever we see, whatever we hear, we react with thought. So the thought, and it's very key that I tell people, the thought and the heart, when coupled, the thoughts with the feeling and emotions, especially the feelings and emotions from the heart, can create amazing things. And that's, I think, what more vegans need to hear is really the positivity and the hope and all of that, because especially in these dire times with governments and media bombarding us with fear and violence and all this negative messaging, we kind of start to, even if it's indirect or maybe if it's subliminal messages, we start to kind of process that in our minds. And even as vegans, even as positive vegans, we kind of start, going down, depressed, a little bit down, maybe, sometimes it feels so good and we want to be like, wow, this is an amazing life that we live, as vegans. But at the same time, we see everything around us we see, you know, a lot of suffering, a lot of violence, and I think we have to switch that vision of what we really want. We really want a vision like a utopia world, Garden of Eden, however you want to think of that. Maybe as the Bible depicts it. Yeah, so I talk about how we should really start to change our minds, thinking differently. Yeah.
I love that. And you know what's so great about the thank you for sharing is that it is nonviolent. And what I was saying was, I don't need that thought. That's actually a little negative. Whereas thank you for sharing is very positive and loving. So I'm going to use that from now on. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that's really good, because our thoughts they have good intentions. Like you said, they come from maybe the reptilian part of our brain or whatever, and they're trying to protect us. And there's plenty of stuff out there to make us scared. And so that's like, you know, don't go near that person. That's not 6 feet. You can't get that close. And, you know, but there's many more things than that, of course, causing fear. And that can cause a whole cascade of negative, fearful, and even violent thoughts. And lots of times when people become afraid, they look out for a common enemy. And like we were saying earlier with angry vegans, they're looking for common enemy. If I only have a common enemy, then I know where to direct my anger and my angst. But it's not about that. And that's where we're becoming in touch with who we really are, Homo Ahimsa, the loving being, the being of non-harm, is because we're realizing that we're capable of living that way. And if once everybody's living that way, and we're, you know, you're helping lead the way, Michael, to help people understand how to do that. How do we do that? It sounds so outlandish. I mean, I can remember when I was a kid talking about things like this, and my dad would call me fuzzy-headed, or empty-headed, or it's totally impractical. You know, how can you make the world better? You know? So, but hey, I think everybody who's listening in, that's why you're here. Exactly. You've been called. But it's a great thing. It's a thing of grace to be called to this. But yeah, what you're saying, Michael, about the thoughts is incredibly important, because we can go down some very dark roads with these thoughts about all the stuff that's going on. And of course we have to be very vigilant, you know, to not get caught into the system, because our job is to create a whole new system. Or maybe system's not even a very good word. A heaven on earth, a paradise. We can do it. We really can. And we just need enough of us to lead the way.
Right.
So, yeah.
So what are some things that, like you and I and other vegans and people in the realm of veganism, what can they do besides, I mean, like, people always ask me, like, well, Mike, what can I do? I mean, I'm just one person. I share veganism with as many people as I can. What else can I do? I mean, we don't have time. We have 6 years. Do you think we're really going to get to that world, that utopian world?
Yeah, that's the thought that leads to despair. And exactly. I think that it may sound a little bit like magical thinking, but it's based on centuries and centuries of wise gurus, teachers, who have been teaching this, including Jesus, who was very likely vegan, nonviolent, and living in community, with communalism, according to a number of different books that have done a lot of deep research. And, of course, also Pythagoras, and it goes way back. All had this vision, all knew we were capable of this. And so we have to say to those negative thoughts, we'll never get there, 2026 is coming up too soon, I didn't see how we can do this, there's only one of me. Say thank you for sharing, like you taught us, right, to those thoughts. However, this is what we're creating, and I am busy creating it in the best way I can. You know, many people have full-time jobs and kids to take care of and parents to take care of and all of that, and don't have time to do a lot of activism. And now, with the lockdowns, that's really put a lockdown on our in-person activism. So if you have time, listen in on these Zoom calls, get involved, find a group that is doing something. And there are local groups who are getting together in person and and working to change things. And there are animal sanctuaries. There's an increasing number of animal sanctuaries that need our help, and they are real keys because people can go to them, and they may be being careful now, not having as many events, but I believe most animal sanctuaries are having a few in-person events. And to take somebody there is a real heart opener for a lot of people to go to those. And plus it's such a hopeful thing to see that these animals have survived animal agriculture and are now living in good homes. And so that's real encouraging. But I think it's also important to kind of strengthen yourself in whatever way that works, whether it's through your faith or your meditation, whatever it may be, your readings, like Thich Nhat Hanh's stuff. He is vegan, and Will Tuttle stuff. Lots of great stuff out there to help strengthen us as we're going through this transition. Because I mean, we can't say it's not difficult, because it is. I mean, there's temptation constantly to get us off track and say, no, we can't do this. It's too hard. Mm-hmm. So, cough here.
Yeah, I very much agree, and I tell people all the time, you know, like, let's keep our thoughts pure, let's keep our thoughts positive, and let's not be bombarded and focus on, you know, what the governments and involved in politics and what the mainstream mass media, you know, puts out to us. But let's focus on what we really want to build, what we really want to envision. Like, we envision something, we envision the end result, the goal, like when we're racing, for example, we're doing some kind of marathon, we envision, okay, I want to finish this race and I want to get to the finish line, and that's where we want to put our thoughts in our hearts, basically at that thought. The more people that envision a peaceful world, envision, you know, the Garden of Eden, however you want to think about that, we can really get there, because the more we focus on the negative side of life, the negative side of society, the more it's going to pull us back to that.
Right. To that life. Yeah, it's the law of attraction.
Right.
You know, if we put out a lot of negative energy, that attracts more negative energy into our lives. And the reverse is also true. But yeah, it creates an energy field when millions of us are imagining this beautiful new world that we're creating.
Exactly.
And now I think even though technology is problematic in many ways, at this point in our transition...
I'm sorry, you broke up there for a moment.
Oh, I was saying, even though technology is problematic in some ways, right now, as in this part of our transition, we really need it to stay together and to share these wonderful ideas and to share the videos, the wonderful videos, and well, gosh, the YouTubes, everything that are out there to help people really understand that we can do this and that we're not alone. There really are millions of us, and we're getting close to 1 billion, and we're getting very close to a tipping point, and we may already be there, and we just don't know it yet, but we're certainly seeing a lot of signs of having reached the tipping point and going on. But the dark forces, whatever they are, the power elite, they're pretty scared right now because they do see the progress we're making and that we're getting closer to a vegan world. And that's very threatening to them. And so I think that's partly what we're seeing in the chaos in the world right now with them, you know, wanting to dumb everybody down, fear everybody down, get people in such a state of fear that they can't think straight. Right. And so we really have to be careful. You know, if we're in a situation where a mask is required, we have to decide, you know, is this something that I want to do in order just to make other people feel safe, or is this an opportunity where I could educate people about being vigilant and understanding what is an overreach of the government and what isn't. And I think it behooves all of us to understand, learn about that as much as we can. There's a lot of confusion and misinformation, but we do need to learn about it. But then we need to take breaks, really take breaks, and get back to our place of no fear, and calm, inner peace, and know, okay, we're going to be fine. We can't picture exactly how it's going to work out, but we can do this. We can do this. And I think that one thing that I kind of think is maybe comforting is that the power elite do seem to be running scared at this point. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because of all the progress we've made in creating a vegan world. And so now's not the time to stop. This is the time to keep going. Exactly. And and understand, hey, we are getting there. So let's go for it.
Excellent, excellent. We're coming up about an hour and a half time, and I could spend literally hours talking to you because I just love the discussion that we're having here, and people could definitely have, you know, vital information that everybody needs really to become better human beings. I mean, we all know in our hearts that we just don't want to do evil things, even though we do it innately within us. We really don't want to like harm and steal and kill and any life form. And so I tend to really, in the times of despair or times of like where we are right now in 2020, there are being so many facets of society which is like breaking apart, falling apart, governments, economy, Black Lives Movement, this pandemic, coronavirus, all this kind of stuff put together. And so many different varying opinions and thoughts and misinformation and so forth. And even vegans fighting one another. You know, before this even happened, this coronavirus even happened, we were more or less we were peaceful. You know, just arguing on what tactic is better than which tactic is the best. You know, to employ. And now it's like, no, the masks, you got to wear masks. And it's like, well, mainly the mask situation, which is really the big thing. And I feel like we should just focus on the beauty and the love and what we, both of us, talk about in our books and really focus on that, even though we have to understand the deeper underlying situation of our society. Realize that, and even so many people have said this in the past, but basically not to try to change the obsolete system, but to create a new one, a completely new one, and see how that goes. But definitely the first step is to get as many people as we can going vegan and teaching also vegans how to thrive and how to live in this world with other non-vegans and free vegans, and go from there. So I want to also just go off topic for a moment and say that this episode and all my work has been sponsored by Evolution Diet Pet Food. So I really thank Eric and Lynn Wiseman for supporting my work and for being there, being the compassionate people they are, and providing vegan pet food for their dogs, people's dogs, cats, and other companion animals.
Yeah.
So petfoodshop.com, you can get pet food there, reasonably priced. And they even have, I think it's the first ever pet food that is organic now. So they have an organic line of pet food that came out a couple of years ago. And I'm so thankful to them for doing all they're doing. So Eric and Lynn Wiseman, petfoodshop.com. And before we leave, I just want to say thank you so much to all the work that you're doing and everybody else that's doing in the world today, because the ones that are starting to reawaken to their natural way of living, ones that are going vegan, and the ones that are already vegan, sharing the message to the world. I want to thank you all for doing what you're doing today, because without you, it would be only us. It's all of us, basically. And so I thank everyone for doing their part, and I thank you also, Judy. Is there any last things that you want to say to the world, to everyone?
To the world, yes. Well, just thank you so much for listening in, and definitely follow Michael and all that he's doing, and keep your positivity, your faith in yourself, your faith in our ability to become Homo Ahimsa. We can do this. We should not get overly distracted by all these other things that are happening, and just have this beautiful, beautiful vision. We're close. So hang on and be peace, be at peace, be love, and thank you for listening. Thank you, Michael, for having me on.
Thank you so much, Judy, for the wonderful message and the discussion today. And don't forget to get Judy's books. You've written even, just a last mention, you've written even more books, right?
Yeah.
Contributed to a few other books.
The Missing Piece, about our kinship with animals, yeah.
Do you have the cover, by any chance? Do you have the books with you?
Yeah, I do. This is The Missing Piece, and this is what Homo Ahimsa looks like.
Wow.
That's my daughter when she was really little. We rescued a robin.
Wow.
And this is Peace to All Beings. That is in my old copy.
Wow.
Of it. That lantern did that one.
I remember I had an old copy as well, and mine was bending, and and then eventually I became a minimalist, and I had only 2 backpacks, and I had to downsize. So I gave all my books away to people, and now I have everything digital on my phone. So once again, thank you, Judy Carman, for being here, and for everybody for attending. And without having this broadcast too long, I will close it here. So thank you, Judy, again, and thank you to everybody that will watch this at any time. And again, if you want to check out Judy's books, it's peacetoallbeings.com.
Right.
And
Correct.
circlesofcompassion.org, and weareinterconnected.com as well. The radio link is right there. So if you click on that, you'll be able to find all the rest of the shows on there. And this has been brought to you by freeconferencecall.com. I'm very grateful to them providing this for free, so you can have like up to 1,000 people on this call. So I'm really, really grateful to them. And yeah, so thank you all, and I wish you the best week. And yeah, take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for coming to Peaceful Village.